Medicare Advantage and all of the reasons why it might not be for you. I've got Thomas here with Chapter. He represents the organization that helps all y'all with navigating the nightmare that is Medicare. Once you have Part A and Part B from Social Security Administration, you go ahead and enroll in that. Then you have to find out some type of plan to fill in all those gaps of original Medicare. I wish there weren't gaps there, but there are many, many gaps in Part A and Part B. And if you just have Part A and Part B alone, then you're going to have a lot of financial risks. So it's either good to get a Medicare supplement plan or a Medicare Advantage plan. Several weeks ago, I did a video on the 6 reasons not to get a Medicare supplement plan. And this is the second part of that. This is 7 reasons. I always throw a bonus in there. 7 reasons not to get a Medicare Advantage plan, because there's reasons to not get one versus the other, and it's 100% based on your particular situation. So we want to make sure everybody out there gets the plan that's best for them. And so let's go ahead and go down through the list. So if you have any questions on all things Medicare or Social Security retirement, survivor benefits, spouse benefits, my name is Ed Weir. I ran the 3rd busiest Social Security office in the country, and I can help you make sure you're getting everything you are entitled to. All right, Thomas, let's go ahead and go through the list here. So we've got 7 reasons why a Medicare Advantage plan might not be for you. I guess the biggest thing right now is the fact that all these plans are being canceled. So right now, this is October. The annual enrollment period begins October 15th, ends December 7th. And so this is for plans for 2025. And what we're seeing is the numbers I've seen is about 1.5, 1.8, close to 2 million people are having their Medicare Advantage plans canceled. Is that the numbers you're receiving?
Yeah, that's the numbers we see as well.
Yeah. And people ask me, I just got a comment yesterday, which plans are being canceled? Well, it's, they asked me that in a YouTube comment, and that would take 30 pages to respond to. So number one, why are these plans being canceled?
There's a few different reasons throughout the country. And again, the plans that are being canceled are dependent on your area. So you may not feel it as much in like South Carolina as you would in like Washington or New York or places like that. But they're being canceled because of the changes that are happening with the prescription drug coverage. Because of the exposure these insurance companies have now on the Part D side, they're not able to create as benefit rich plans on the medical side. And they have 2 options. Either they greatly reduce the benefits you see in the plan, or they get rid of it entirely. And another step that they may do as well is greatly reduce the number of plans that they offer in an area. So there's a couple different ways that insurance companies are reacting to all the changes that are happening within Medicare. And this is one of them.
Yeah, I see. In particular parts of the country, I know in like in Missouri, there are companies that are just leaving completely. They said, okay, we can't make money in this particular state, so we're just going to leave the state completely. And so those people, you have to find another plan by December 7th. And it's good to go ahead and get that out of the way now before you forget, because if you don't, then in January, you're going to be fully exposed. You're going to go to the doctor and they're going to hand you a bill for $3,000 or $4,000 or whatever the case may be. And you're going to say, I have this Medicare plan. And says, no, that was canceled. So you have to make sure you get another plan. And then, so there's companies leaving particular areas, and there's companies that a lot of people don't recognize, that there are companies that have, in most areas, the same company has 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different versions of their plans, and they come out with a new plan every year, sometimes, and their previous plan that you may have had for the past 2 or 3 years, that gets what we call downgraded. So we see a lot of plans out there. The company is still going to stay around, but in order, because hate to break the news to people out there, but these are for-profit institutions, correct? All these healthcare companies?
Of course.
And they make a couple of bucks, don't they?
They make more than just a couple.
All right. So what they're doing is I call it kind of their soft canceling. So if your particular company decided to go ahead, they're going to stay in your area, but they're going to, they want to make more money, what they're doing is they're downgrading your plan. So people don't realize, well, I've got this company, I've always liked them, I've got my doctor, it's zero premium, I'm good, I don't have to do anything, I'm good, I don't need to mess around with this stuff, I don't need to spend an hour of my life calling Thomas and his team to see if I need to review the plan because I'm good. Well, you might not be good. You might still have the same company, you might still have the same doctor, it might still be zero premium, but everything else just might have changed. What are you seeing out there for the biggest changes under the hood?
Sure. So when we take a peek behind the curtain, a couple things that we're seeing, of course, one is the prescription drug plan changes that you've seen all over the news, as well as in previous videos that you and I have talked about the Part D changes. In addition to that, what we're seeing is some of those extra benefits that you might be accustomed to seeing, like your dental coverage, your over the counter, your vision add-ons that are within these plans may be reduced compared to years previous because they have to make it up elsewhere from that Part D change. Another area that most people overlook is maybe like lab services, MRIs, CAT scans, and other diagnostic treatments that aren't as widely used, or maybe they're not as quick to go check what the line items are there. Those are some areas that they're kind of sneaking in some higher costs than they've seen in previous years. So you might notice your primary care doctor might still be zero to go visit her or him, but when you go to actually get some diagnostic work done, you're going to get some surprise bills in the mail if you don't take a review of that plan for this year.
Perfect, perfect. And as I mentioned, you can reach out to the person that signed you up. If you've got, obviously, a lot of people out there have relatives that are helping with Medicare insurance, or a high school friend or something like that, then obviously go to them. You've got to review your plan. But if you don't have anybody to help you out, you can reach out to Thomas and his team there, and they can definitely help you out. Another thing, another reason to get to not get a Medicare Advantage is the restrictive networks of doctors, hospitals, clinics, all the rest of it. And there's also doctors. So a doctor, when they sign up for a plan, because when people sign up for a Medicare Advantage, it's good for 1 year. So only 1 year. So at December 31st, midnight, like Cinderella, it disappears. And maybe the same plan renews next year, but it's usually with changes, and you don't know those changes until you review. But doctors can drop those plans mid-year or anytime they want. Is that true?
That is true. So the way it's structured is usually you have a group of doctors together that are creating like the network for themselves, if you will, and then you'll have a separate setup for the hospital itself. And both have to negotiate with these plans every single year to decide whether they're going to stay in these networks. One of the cruel things that we see sometimes is these negotiations are ongoing throughout the annual enrollment period. So what may uh, look to be a network right now may not be a network by December 7th. So it's very key to ensure that you continue to open that mail and continue to see what your doctors are telling you about what plans they are or not accepting for 2025. This is creating a lot of uncertainty in the space, and a lot of people have voiced that they just have lost complete peace of mind when it comes to their Medicare Advantage plans. So yes, restrictive networks, because I mean that's controlled by the insurance company. They only want to let certain networks and hospitals work with their plan because they can negotiate the specific rates that they want. But in the event that they decide later on, well, hey, this isn't a good deal for me from a doctor's perspective. They're not paying us. Maybe they're slow to pay their claims. Maybe they're just the negotiated rates much lower than they had anticipated when they signed on the dotted lines. They can leave mid-year, and what that causes is unless you have your own special enrollment period, you're stuck in that plan until the next annual enrollment period, which means you can't see the doctor that you've been seeing for the time that you've been on that plan. So it's completely out of your control at that point.
Yeah, that's the tough thing with Medicare Advantage. I've seen it many, many times. Someone is like they talk to their son-in-law or something, and that person is helps them with Medicare Advantage, and the son-in-law checks, and oh yeah, your doctor is definitely a network. You're good. Let's go ahead and sign you up with this one. And then it turns out a month later, the doctor decides to drop it, and the doctor is no longer in network. Yeah, so it's kind of tough out there, and you see every single day. It seems like another hospital or system says, "Yeah, we're not going to renew the contract with this particular company, and you're just kind of out of luck." And this is for only Medicare Advantage. So this whole thing is crazy, confusing. I wish the American healthcare system wasn't as confused. Well, the healthcare system is great. It's one of the best in the country. The kind of the insurance part of it, that's what's that seems to be the nightmare. Um, but we see, the Medicare Advantage, those have networks. Original Medicare, that's not what doctors are dropping predominantly. I mean, most doctors don't drop accepting Medicare. Obviously, there's a few percent out there, but hospitals don't normally drop original Medicare. So what we're talking here today is about Medicare Advantage. So if the alternative to Medicare Advantage, as I talked about a few weeks ago, are Medicare supplements. Those are the ones you see: Medicare Supplement Plan N, Plan G, Plan F. But those are, if you're 65 years old, you're new to Medicare Part B, you can get those. There's other special enrollment periods. You can go ahead and get a Medicare supplement plan. And the beautiful thing this year about all these people being canceled, close to 2 million people being canceled, those people now have special rights to sign up for a Medicare supplement. So when somebody calls you and they say, "Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I've been canceled." What's the first thing y'all do?
Sure. So the first thing that we do is get an idea of how they've used their program up to that point, knowing full well that the advisor is aware of their guaranteed issue period for that Medicare supplement. And for those that may be new to your channel, a guaranteed issue period is just something where you can go into a Medicare supplement plan without having to undergo medical underwriting, which is very difficult for people to have to go through because how restrictive they are with their procedures there. So what we're going to be asking is, well, how many doctors do you see? How many prescriptions do you take? What are your priorities? And how much freedom do you want to have in your medical choices? Because the more freedom you want, the more peace of mind you want, the more control that you want, a Medicare supplement route is going to offer you that where a Medicare Advantage can't.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and the deciding factor, everybody I've talked to always wants a Medicare supplement plan. But the issue is, as I talked about when I did the Medicare supplement video, is there is a monthly premium for that. With freedom, unfortunately, comes a cost. So we'll
Of
talk
course.
about that here in a little bit. A number four is prior authorizations. Another reason a lot of people stay away from Medicare Advantage plans is they have prior authorization. So that means if the doctor says you need some type of treatment, that's not the final word. The final word is they have to submit it to their insurance company. I've gotten people that said, "Well, I've never had a prior authorization. I never had an issue with that." Other people said, "Well, I had a terrible issue with that. I was denied or delayed or whatever the case may be." And there's a lot of companies out there that, for specific things, they're doing prior authorizations. Original Medicare takes things differently. With original Medicare and therefore a Medicare supplement, there are no prior authorizations. If Medicare covers it, obviously, the cosmetic thing, I couldn't go in there and get a hair transplant, unfortunately. And we're going to work on that one, right, Thomas? We're going to make sure
Of
that's
course.
covered by original Medicare. But yeah, anything I think of short of cosmetic type stuff, if it's medically necessary, Medicare just goes ahead and do it. There is no prior authorization. How they do it is they go after people after the fact. So if there's doctors out there doing shady things and that were not medically necessary, that's when they go after the doctors and close them down and sue them and hopefully put them in jail and all the rest of the stuff. But Medicare Advantage companies, they kind of you know do that on the front end, and that's where the prior authorizations come in. And so there's benefits for both, but a lot of people don't like an insurance accountant getting in between them and their doctors. So prior authorizations, the networks are probably two of the biggest reasons people stay away from Medicare Advantage plans. All right, let's move on to number five. Always zero premium. So the big thing that, again, if a budget was not an issue, pretty much everybody would get an F or a G. F, it's more difficult because you have to a certain age, but everybody would probably get a G if it was zero premium. But they're not. That's why a lot of people, their budget just dictates that they can only go to a Medicare Advantage plan. But a lot of those Medicare Advantage plans are zero premium now, but that wasn't the case many years ago. And perhaps that won't be the case in the future. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. But once you're in a Medicare Advantage plan, you're kind of at the mercy of that. How difficult is it to switch from a Medicare Advantage plan to a Medicare supplement plan, other than obviously, having that letter that you've been canceled?
Sure. So in the event that you're not in a plan that's being canceled this year, unless you have been on Medicare for less than 6 months, you're going to have to go through medical underwriting, which means that they're going to be asking you questions about your mobility, your heart history, your any kind of internal cancers that they've looked at, anything that might be pending from a test result or a diagnostic treatment. They go really deep into your medical history and to see the outlook of how insurable you are for a Medicare supplement plan. Now, that's just a piece of it. If you're somebody that's healthy, great, you should be able to pass underwriting, but there's only certain times a year that you can do it because you have to have an enrollment period to get out of your Medicare Advantage plan. And for the vast majority of Americans, that's going to be during annual enrollment period, which is October 15th through December 7th. Outside of that, you have to kind of wait for that moment to be able to do so.
Yeah, that's what a lot of the enrollment periods. It's kind of a nightmare. So if you have original Medicare and a Medicare supplement plan, and if you want to switch your Medicare supplement plan, you can do that every day of the year, right?
Yeah, you can switch your Medicare supplement plan at any point to another one.
Yeah. So it's basically if you're in a G and want to go to another company and save some money and find a cheaper G, or from a G to an N or N to a G, if you're healthy or you have some type of special enrollment period, well, you don't have to go through health underwriting. You know, 365 days of the year, it's predominantly health underwriting, except for a few states, right?
That's correct. There's just a handful of states like New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts. Maine has a special one. Washington, California, Missouri are kind of the known ones, if you will. So if you're in one of those 7 states, there's some workarounds that you can kind of get into a supplement plan. But as you can see, the other 43 states are going to leave you having to go through that underwriting process.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's move on to number 6. The Part D, the prescription drug part embedded in Medicare Advantage, is not always the best. There's kind of a trade-off, right? So if you have original Medicare supplement, then you can choose from any Part D, standalone Part D plan in your area. But if you choose a Medicare Advantage, the Part D is not always the best in Medicare Advantage, and you're kind of limited because you're like, okay, well, I need this doctor, and there's only 3 or 4 plans that have the doctor I really want. So you're kind of stuck with maybe just 2 or 3, whatever Part D is embedded in that. You cannot get a Medicare Advantage and then get a completely separate Part D plan. Is that correct?
That's correct. It has to be built into the Medicare Advantage plan that you have chosen or narrowed it down to. Of course, you want to make sure you keep your providers in network. And for most people, the Part D plan, as long as they're taking maintenance prescriptions, maybe like a lisinopril, maybe an atorvastatin, they're not gonna notice the trade-offs there. It's really when you get into like the insulins or maybe the blood thinners that you may or may not have to take, or maybe it's an inhaler that you have to take. You're going to be much more limited into what you can and can't do depending on the carrier that you end up with. Because one carrier may say, hey, we'll take this one and this one. And then you're like, okay, well, I have to go to this plan now because my doctor takes this one. And you find out what you've been taking on that with them might not work over here. So there's a lot of trade-offs that some people have to find out the hard way when they switch their plans.
Yeah, yeah. But luckily, you can switch the plans once a year, and guess what? Now is the time to do it. So if you switch this October 15th to December 7th, the new plan takes effect January 1st. And all you have to do is call that number down there. Thomas and his team will walk you through it. First thing you do is check the doctors. That's the most important thing. Want to make sure they keep their doctors, and then see which plans cover the formularies, save them the most money for their drugs, and then what's the other process y'all do over there?
Yeah, we also got to take a look at your priorities. Like, how do you plan on using the plan? Where do you plan on using the plan? And what have you been used to doing with your health insurance up until this point, and making sure it aligns so that way, because at the end of the day, you only want to have one Medicare conversation a year at most. Otherwise, you want to go back and doing things more fun, like enjoying retirement or spending time with your grandchildren. The more you talk to me, the worse it's probably going to be for you.
Hopefully your wife doesn't say that, right?
Of course. Yeah, I hope not.
All right, yeah. What one of the benefits is that chapter I look for. I've interviewed companies throughout the country, seeing which organization is going to help y'all the most, and I narrowed it down to chapter. Thomas and I just did. I kind of interviewed him again about a week or so ago, and I asked him all the questions I asked all the other companies, and chapter was the only one that answered. Then let's say that they Freddie Friedman it and they
Oh, well, thank
grand
you.
slam home. You like that? You like how I did
Yeah,
that?
that was
Yeah,
good.
yeah. The grand slam walk off home run. Yeah, they answered every question and above and beyond. So, but even if you only need to talk to Thomas and his team once a year, hopefully, unless you move or something like that. But you also have a team. What do you call it? The member success team. So if there's a problem with you're having a problem with billing or your insurance company or something like that, y'all have a team that helps with that as well, right?
We do. The member success team is really good at handling post-enrollment issues. As you've mentioned several times on your show, is insurance companies may not have the smoothest road for you as a client. So you need somebody that's going to stand there at the gate for you to help triage where you need to go and how you need to solve it. The member success team would be your first line of defense to call to solve common issues like billing errors, coding errors, or maybe you just need to help finding a doctor in your area if you're like maybe new to the area or something.
Perfect, perfect. Okay. Hopefully we didn't and all the Yankees fans that just didn't click off and say forget it. I'm not watching these guys anymore. So anyway, all right. So the final one is avoid Medicare Advantage because people think it's cheaper. Yes, a Medicare supplement is going to cost you a monthly premium depending on the plan you choose and the part of the country you're in. Medicare Advantage, a lot of them are zero premium. There's some that do have a monthly premium, but most people choose the ones that have a zero premium because it is cheaper. Are is that zero premium plan actually cheaper than a plan that costs $100 a month, Chuck Thomas?
Yeah, in most cases, it's not, Dr. Ed. So usually when you see something that's $0 per month and you have this sinking feeling in the back of your mind that is probably too good to be true, it's a good rule of thumb in this case as well. Because when you start digging into the evidence of coverage, maybe the summary of benefits, you start seeing where those co-insurances could come up and bite you in the event you need it. So a short-term gratification of like, oh, only paid $0 this month for a long-term potential suffering, you just have to be on the lookout for what may or may not come up later through that max out of pocket, those co-insurances, and those diagnostic fees that you'll have to pay.
Yeah, and the fact again is, as I mentioned, it's zero premium now, a lot of these, but that might not necessarily be the fact. Maybe with the entire industry changes, that's why there's so much turmoil in the 2025 plans that's going on right now, is because of all the stuff coming down and the increased prices and the baby boomers and the Inflation Reduction Act and all that stuff. So you get into a plan, oh, it's zero premium, I'm definitely going to do a zero premium. But if you're going to live healthy and you're never going to fall or get injured or scuba diving or whatever, then you're good for the rest of your life at zero premium, if that company, if the industry stays at zero premium. But if something happens sometimes, yeah. So if you have $1 million surgery and you have a plan G, how much of the $1 million do you have to pay with the plan G?
If you haven't touched it at all for the year, just 240 of it. So
Yep.
all you're responsible with on that plan G is the initial Part B deductible, which is $240 this year.
Yep. So if you get a plan F, how much?
Zero. You're 100% covered for any Part A or Part B related expense.
Yep. But with Medicare Advantage, it really depends on the particular area. They've got max out of pockets. I think the lowest I've seen is like in Florida. What's the lowest max out of pocket you've seen in Florida?
I
It's
think
like,
that would be Broward County, and I've seen some max out of pockets around the $900 range, which is really cool. Orange County in California has those as well. Now, keep in mind that those are usually HMO plans, so
yes. Yep.
that's the other trade-off as well.
Yeah, but max out of pocket, those are very unusual. That's why I kind of point those out in Florida.
Oh yeah.
But just like the hurricane season in there, it's yeah, the insurance rates in Florida are going up. My sister can attest to that. But in the rest of the country, you've got max out of pockets, 2, 3, 4, 5,000, and those reset every single year. So if you go into a doctor at the end of the year, November, December, you have something, and you've got your max out of pocket. You had to pay $5,000, $6,000 out of pocket, and then you're continuing whatever issue you have. In January, you get another bill for $5,000 or $6,000. So, and those max out of pockets go up every single year.
Correct.
All right. And the bonus is many plans require referrals. So this is 7+1, and many plans require referrals. Do you have to have a referral with Medicare supplement plans?
You do not. No. As long as they accept Medicare, you can use that particular doctor.
Yep. So anywhere in the country, if you want to go to the big medical facility in Houston or something, jump on a plane and go there. As long as they take original Medicare, they take the Medicare supplement, Medicare Advantage. Not so much, right?
That's correct.